my 10-year-old asked me what Bitcoin was. I have been in Bitcoin for years. I should have been able to answer in 30 seconds, and I couldn't. And the reason why caught me completely off guard. I'm Sats. And this is what happened when a 10-year-old accidentally stress-tested everything I thought I knew. Let me tell you how it started. Because it did not start as a lesson. It started as a casual question. We were in the car. I had been listening to something Bitcoin-related, and she had caught a word. She asked what Bitcoin was. Not in a challenging way, just genuine curiosity. The way kids ask about things they have not encountered before. I started to answer and immediately ran into something I had not expected. The words I reached for first were not my own. They were phrases I had absorbed from podcasts and articles. Decentralized, digital gold, trustless, fixed supply. I started saying them and I could hear how hollow they sounded the moment they left my mouth. Not wrong exactly, but not actually an explanation, just vocabulary. She looked at me and said, "Okay, but what is it actually?" That is the 10-year-old test. You cannot hide behind vocabulary with a 10-year-old. They are not going to be impressed by technical terminology or let you off the hook with a complicated answer. They want to understand the thing itself. And if you cannot explain the thing itself, they will tell you so. Not unkindly, just honestly. I tried a different approach. I said, think about the money in my wallet. The pounds and dollars we use every day. Someone decides how much of that exists. A government, a central bank. They control the supply. They can make more of it when they want to. And when they make more, what you already have becomes worth a little less. She nodded. She understood that bit. I said Bitcoin is a kind of money where nobody controls the supply. It is fixed. There will only ever be a certain amount of it, built into the rules of how it works, and nobody can change that. Not a government, not a company, not anyone. She thought about it for a moment. Then she asked who made the rules. I said the rules were written into the original code, and they are maintained by thousands of computers all over the world that all follow the same rules. No single person is in charge. She asked what the computers get out of it. I said they get a small amount of Bitcoin for helping to keep the system running. She said that seems fair, and then she asked the question I was not ready for. She said, but why is it worth anything if you can't hold it? I opened my mouth to answer and stopped, because the honest answer is that Bitcoin is worth something, because enough people have decided it is worth something, and that number keeps growing, which sounds circular. And it is, slightly, but it is also true of every currency that has ever existed. The pound in my wallet is worth something because everyone agrees it is worth something. Bitcoin is the same mechanism with a different foundation underneath it. I tried to explain that. She listened. She said, so it is like a game where everyone agrees to play by the same rules and the rules cannot be changed. I said yes, that is actually a very good way of putting it. She said, okay, and went back to whatever she was doing. And this is where it got uncomfortable. I had thought I understood Bitcoin, and in a certain sense I did, but not in a way that could survive a simple question. I could follow technical discussions. I could hold my own in a conversation with someone who had been in the space for years. I had built up a working knowledge that felt solid, but I had never actually stress tested it. I had never tried to explain it from the ground up to someone who had no context and would not accept borrowed phrases as a substitute for genuine explanation. The 10-year-old test is the most honest measure of understanding I have found. Not whether you can discuss Bitcoin with people who already know it, whether you can explain it to someone who has never heard of it and has no reason to pretend they understand when they do not. She had no vocabulary to borrow. She had no social pressure to nod along. She just wanted to understand the thing. And the gaps in my explanation were immediately visible because she asked about them. The part that surprised me most was the question about value. Why is it worth anything if you cannot hold it? Because that is actually one of the hardest questions in Bitcoin, and she arrived at it naturally without being prompted in about 2 minutes. Most adults never ask it directly. They either assume Bitcoin has value because it does, or they dismiss it because they do not understand why it would. A child just asks the question plainly. If you can answer that question in plain language without jargon, in a way that would satisfy a 10-year-old, you actually understand Bitcoin. If you cannot, you have borrowed an understanding from somewhere else and it will fail you at the moments that matter. I went home and spent time working through the explanations until they were genuinely mine. Not better vocabulary. A simpler, more honest account of what Bitcoin actually is and why it works. The 10-year-old did not learn much from that conversation in the car. I learned quite a lot. Here is the short version. My 10-year-old asked what Bitcoin was. The words I reached for first were borrowed phrases that sounded hollow the moment I said them. The 10-year-old test is this. Can you explain Bitcoin from the ground up to someone with no context, who will not accept jargon as an answer, and who will tell you honestly when they do not understand? If yes, you actually understand it. If no, you have borrowed someone else's understanding, and it will let you down when you need it most. The question she asked that I was not ready for. Why is it worth anything if you cannot hold it? That is one of the hardest questions in Bitcoin. She arrived at it in 2 minutes. Work on your answer to that question until it is yours. Not borrowed, yours. If you want to build an explanation of Bitcoin's value that is actually yours rather than borrowed, the video on why Bitcoin has value is the place to start. It will not give you the words to use. It will give you the understanding to find your own. Watch that next. Stack smart, stay curious. See you in the next stack.